So today you join me in a very wet Yorkshire Dales. What I'm going to do is take you through the journey of my time up here. I've visited waterfalls and red squirrels, and I'm going to share some photos with you. I hope you enjoy this video. After weeks of heavy rain, it's finally starting to brighten up, and so it seems like the perfect weekend for a little bit of a trip. With the ground being so saturated, we know that the waterfalls are going to be pretty intense. But I've also found that after a long period of rain, it can be a great opportunity to see wildlife. So in this video, you'll join me and 3 friends as we head north for a weekend of wildlife and waterfall photography. Now, as you can probably imagine, every trip with photographers starts with a game of car Tetris. James, I'm going to take...
Oh, if you do that, the top comes off.
That's what I'm hoping. Right, cram that in there.
I said this would be a squeeze. There you go.
Why? It's just you and me in there. Why is it a squeeze? Now, whenever I watch these videos back, I'm always surprised at just how nerdy we can be as a group. We bounce between the topics of wildlife, waterfalls and weather, as you'd expect on this trip. So, explain that again for me, James. So the American
Bird Association is changing the names of certain birds because it may offend certain people due to them being like slave owners back in the 17 and 1800s.
Yeah,
people who originally found the bird.
I think the most egregious one was a particular bird that was named after a slave trader.
Yeah.
Something along those lines.
But they're not.
So just a bit of an update on this subject. On the 2nd of November 2023, the American Ornithological Society stated that they would be removing all human names from bird species, which will affect around 70 to 80 species, and will separate them from any historical association. Anything that intends to make wildlife photography more inclusive always has my full support. So it was interesting to talk about this and other subjects as we drove up.
70 to 180 is known for its stellar optical stabilization.
I don't know. It is. It's G2 is.
Just look the opposite way to whatever he's filming.
Yeah.
You'll see some good stuff.
Oh, look at this.
Can't wait.
As we got closer to the rivers, it seemed pretty evident that there'd been a lot of rain. And so, the first stop would be a favourite of mine, Cauldron Falls at West Burton.
That is a waterfall right there. That is proper going.
It's amazing here, isn't it?
My last visit here had been in January, and in comparison, the surge had almost doubled in size, and the river was almost twice as deep. Originally, we intended to search up and down this stretch of river to see if we could spot some dippers. But with the river flowing as fast as it was unlikely we were going to see any. And so our attention turned to the falls itself. When photographing as a group, one of the things that we take the time to do is explain to each other what our composition will look like. This makes sure that we don't get in each other's shots and saves us so much time in editing because we're not removing each other from the photos. For my composition, there was a couple of things about this location I noticed. Some of the trees had taken on their autumnal tone, but also the deep water had meant that the moss on the top of the rocks was also very green, and so I wanted to also capture that. So what I decided to do was split the frame using some foreground elements. I took a particularly low angle, the floor in fact, and that enabled me to capture this. Now my settings are down the side, but you'll notice I'm using an ND filter. This was kindly sent to me by the people over at Kent Faith Concept. It's part of a magnetic set which I'll touch on again later. But here is what it looks like. Now if you don't know what an ND filter is, imagine a pair of sunglasses for your camera, and when it comes to running water, what it enables you to do is to create that dreamy blur that you'll see in a lot of landscape photos. Without going into too much detail, it enables you to lower your shutter speed. Now for me, This was the sweet spot. The 2-second exposure gave me enough of a blur to show the movement of water without bleaching anything out. And with this composition, I was able to capture both the autumn tones and the greenery of the moss. With the light quickly fading, we headed to the place where we would be staying, then drove to a local pub for some food. And then that was the end of day one. After looking through some of our shots together, we decided to check the weather for the next day. It was supposed to be bright and sunny in the morning, so that meant one thing. We were heading to the Red Squirrels. It's day 2 and in typical British fashion, the weather is not quite as promised, but we're not put off. We are on the hunt to go and find some squirrels. We parked up ahead of our walk. It's only a short walk. It follows a public footpath, along the river, and then straight into the woods. Easy. What we hadn't accounted for was how wet it was going to be. There were several points where we were actually wading in the river.
We are currently walking towards, what's this place called? Snae's home? Yeah, we're currently walking towards Snae's home. Hopefully I've said that right. In search of red squirrels.
Driven 3.5 hours on the promise that there'll be loads. So it's all on you.
Now watch this next part carefully, because I'm about to take the same route that Richard just did.
How did you get across?
Yeah, just give it a jump.
Well, my feet are soaked.
Resident cowboy and seasoned hiker James spotted this very easy path, and Cameron decided to go around the whole thing up to the bridge. Lesson learned, on a hike, never follow Richard.
It feels like it.
Just as battling through the boggy mud had begun to get a bit tedious, we caught our first clear view of the woods that we'd be travelling to. And what was even more of a welcome sight was that the sun had finally arrived and the clouds were beginning to clear.
About 1.5 kilometres into our walk, we parked at a lay-by that we found on YouTube, and
That white sign.
and now we're using James's 500mm to check what signposts say in the distance, so we don't have to walk all the way over to them because we're lazy. But the views when we've been walking over have been really good. So we've got a few shots, and I'll show you those now. This is my whole section on some of us take to the walk more naturally than others. But I'm here now. The last time I was here, I was doing primarily videos, so I didn't really get to take many photos. So what I've brought with me this time is the Sony A7R4 and the Sigma 150-600, which is actually pretty much my go-to setup for wildlife. So I'm gonna start taking some photos, and hopefully I'll get some really nice exposures, and I'll show you those throughout the video.
What you're seeing on your screen right now is the moment that I realised just how lucky and privileged I am to do what I do. And so I want to share with you a few moments of that woodland, because not everyone has the opportunity to watch this. I hope you enjoy. Being able to get this close to wildlife was an unforgettable experience. When we had the early morning light, it felt almost effortless to get great photos.
So one of the best things I find to do when taking pictures of animals in general is dropping down to their level. As you can see, I'm not very steady with my hands, so my shutter speed has to be quite fast. So to add that isolation and that kind of interesting look to the photos, what I do is I will come down to the animal's level if I can, or even lower, so you can get a clear background behind them. And in areas like this where it's just tons of woodland, it's really difficult to get that nice clean shot, so coming down will really help. So Richard has never seen a red squirrel before. Look how excited he is. He's been doing some artsy shots.
Yeah.
So, hang on, let me turn it around. Thoughts on this place, Richard?
Oh yeah, it's solid. It's no, it's really good. It's really good. It's well worth the walk. Like, it's I don't know. It's what, a 20-minute walk to get here?
Yeah,
like
probably.
But
and it's quite intense. It's like
it's phenomenal.
It's not a difficult walk. It's just boggy because of the weather.
Yeah, it's so worth the walk. It's just.
What were you doing with the light?
So tucked the light into a little kind of, you might even be able to see it at the back, into kind of a shady bit by the tree. I'm trying to intersperse all the clips. And then, yeah, getting the squirrel to come round and sit in there. It looks really nice, kind of side lit the squirrel.
Show me on the back of your camera again.
Oh, I guess you must have cut it.
Yeah, we'll go for realism.
Oh, okay.
It looks very Christmassy. I like
Yeah.
it. Are you going to take the light out or leave the light in?
So I've shot facing forwards, so it's side lit.
Yeah.
So it's the squirrel dead looking at me, side lit there and there. Looks really nice. Well, it's on my other camera. I'll have to show you. So it's just a video of the actual shot. Oh, it's good. It's good.
But I found the hardest part here is knowing where to look.
Yeah.
I'm like this everywhere, like trying to work out where I'm supposed to look next.
It's very much a case of you just pick a spot and
yeah, it's
you're going to miss something, but you're going to get something great
I think
as well.
I stopped taking photos of squirrels about probably an hour after we arrived because the sunlight had gone. So I've been switching over to the birds because there's just so many little birds
There's
here.
loads of birds, yeah.
They're just everywhere. So I've been doing little birds, and then as I'm doing that, the squirrels keep coming up and raiding my bag. James has been using the 500 f4.
So it's the EF500 f4 Mark II. It's a decent lens. As As I'm not a major wildlife photographer, it's definitely more challenging for two reasons. Firstly, the autofocus is a little bit slow, especially versus like an RF 100 to 500. But the biggest thing for me is the minimum focus distance. We're getting squirrels coming right up close, but the issue you've got is it's 3.7 meters minimum focus. So you're missing what could be perfect shots just because that minimum focus distance. It's a very particular lens. You get the shot, but it's a real trial and error with.
It's a dream lens.
It's a dream lens, definitely, but
it's definitely up there on the wildlife spectrum.
100%. What I like about it versus the 400mm f2.8 versus the 600mm f4 is there's less demand for it, which means the prices are about half. So
still,
this is about
what was it, second hand?
4,500, but versus the same for a 600mm, you'll be looking at 10,000. So actually, you're getting very similar image quality. And if you've got an R5, you crop in a little bit, you're getting roughly the same as a 600mm. So
but for application here, is it a win, or would you
100%.
rather
I think I've
zoom?
probably got about 20 or 30 good photos, but you've just got to, instead of kind of hunting around and looking for the shot that you're after, you've got to choose a spot and keep it there until the wildlife are in that shot. Otherwise, you trying to find your subject can take a long time. Then by that time, squirrels have gone or the birds have gone, and there's just no chance of it. So for a zoom, you're getting a little bit more of that versatility with a little bit more of angles and compositions and things that are a bit closer or a bit further away. But you've got to, once you've chosen it, you've got an absolute perfect spot.
So hopefully by now you're wanting to visit. It's an incredible place and a real experience, so I thoroughly recommend it to everyone. The site is pretty remote, so getting to it's quite complicated, so here's some information.
So the walk itself isn't too challenging. Just after the weather we've had recently, the ground is very soft and uneven. So if you can do the walk, I'd thoroughly recommend it. It's a really pretty walk. You get to see all of the clouds and the mist rising out of the trees. There are other alternatives. You can book ahead if you call the Hawes Visitor Centre, and there is a couple of parking bays down on the farm, which is just literally outside the gate. Those do have to be booked in advance. There's also a minibus which will bring you here. Again, can be booked through the Hawes Visitor Centre. So if you're planning on coming this way, I definitely recommend sorting your travel out beforehand and knowing where you're going, because it's one of the things that tripped us up. We arrived yesterday, left it too late to plan, and we luckily found this place to park. So definitely plan ahead. That is my advice for this trip. Now, let's start the walk.
Heading back to the car, we were all in really high spirits. We'd had a great time and got the photos we wanted, despite a couple of showers along the way. On the walk, we actually spotted quite a few birds of prey, so if you are going to do this walk, don't be like us. Make sure to keep your camera out of your bag.
Okay, I'm filming. You filming me, filming them.
As you walk through this valley, you're able to see the impact of the rewilding. Every direction you look, there's a new tree plantation. It's really great news for the squirrel population. When you do a long walk like this, sometimes you're able to take in your surroundings and spot things that are quite iconic to the area that you are in. We loved all of the stone walls, barns, and rivers. With the light quickly fading, we figured we had time for one more waterfall. And just a short drive away, we found this one. Travelling to this place gives me the perfect opportunity to use the ND filter kit that I was sent. We are running out of light though, so it's going to be a bit of a race against time.
So I've made it to the waterfall. This is the real reason I've come. And as you can see, it is really tall. It's actually the tallest waterfall in the UK. So I'm going to put on this ND now, like so. How easy that is. And I'm going to take some photos and see how it comes out. I will take one quickly though without an ND filter on, just so you can see how it looks without it. So what I'm doing now, I'm looking for a composition. I really like when there's like a supernatural element and then something man-made in the middle. So this little rock edge on the end of this little bridge here, I'm probably going to use that to kind of frame it somehow. So let's go and line this up and see. So again, I'm going to take one down here for you so you can see what it looks like without an ND. So I'm going to keep, for the sake of this, I'm going to keep my ISO the same, just so you can see the difference it has on the actual image rather than the quality of the noise and so on. So we're going to stay at 1600 ISO. I'm at f4.5, which is actually quite shallow for landscape, but because of the fading light, I'm going to have to work with that at the minute. And I'm at 100th of a second. So let's see what that looks like. Now at 100th of a second with water, you are going to freeze it a little bit, and there's going to be a little bit of motion blur, but it's not going to be solid. If you want to freeze water completely, you want to be looking at something like 1,000th of a second, especially with fast flowing water like this. So let's get one of these NDs. I'm going to do luck of the draw and see what I pull out. Let's go with the ND64. Whoop. And then I've got my hands full. This is what I like about this. I can roughly get in front of the lens like this, and it's on. No fiddly screw threads, which for someone like me with my benign tremor, that's such a great feature because I'm not screwing filter threads in, and then I just got to align it properly. There we go, done. So let's see what this looks like. So I'm about 100th of a second. I've now got the ND64 on, which means I've got 6 stops of neutral density. So we need to go down on that shutter speed. And I'm just going to pot lock it. I'm going to go to, let's go to 1/6 of a second. And we're going to up the aperture to 5.6, give us a little bit more wiggle room. So now, because I've got the ND on the front, the lens is constantly hunting for focus because obviously I've taken away the contrast from the image. So I'm going to switch to manual focus and get this absolutely nailed. Okay, so let's put the self timer on. And for this sake, because we're pretty solid here, we're out of the wind, I'm going to go with the 2-second self timer, so you should see the little light come on. There's our first image. Let's have a look. A little bit dark. I reduce the shutter speed a little bit. I can reduce the aperture. There's so many possibilities. So we'll just reduce the shutter speed. And what we're doing here is that's going to give us much longer exposure, meaning that the water is going to be even more ghosted, which is going to be great if we're trying to create that dreamy effect in these photos.
After this, I played around with the filter set for quite some time. In this bag you've got a few different shades, an ND3, 6 and 10. You've also got a graduated ND in there, which is this one. So essentially it's a gradient from top to bottom, where it's darker at the top and lighter at the bottom. Perhaps not ideal for waterfalls, but if you were to photograph skies or larger landscapes, this would definitely be an absolute winner. My honest thoughts on the kit? I feel like it is missing the circular polarizer to make it a complete landscape set. But overall it's really good, build quality is amazing, so easy to use, and I just couldn't find any faults with it. They are even incredibly reasonable in price. So much so that I actually purchased a second set for myself. I use them all the time when I'm doing video work, because on video you don't have as much control over the shutter speed like you do in photo. A lot of videographers will use things like a variable ND, but for consistency I like to use fixed NDs, because often in this job I'll be travelling from place to place and all it takes is one knot, and a variable ND is not where I left it. So if you are in the market for an ND filter, these will be a great addition to your bag. The Kent Faith slogan is first choice for photo and video, and having got a number of their products now, I can honestly say I'm really impressed with what they do. It's day 3 and the sun has decided to come out, so we decided to head back to the squirrel forest. However, there's intermittent showers the whole time, so I'm not entirely sure what shots we're going to get. But having got the majority of shots we need to make this video, we're actually just going back to enjoy ourselves. Within minutes of our arrival, we could hear them coming down from the trees, their inquisitive nature immediately being on show. The squirrels in this area are so used to human contact that they are more than happy to root through your bag and search for anything to eat. But this gives you an opportunity to closely study these animals. Watching these natural behaviours as they comb through the forest was truly fascinating, and it was such a treat to be able to be in such close proximity to them, a species that not too long ago was close to being wiped out because of the actions of humans, now starting its journey on the road to recovery. I could sit and watch them all day, But with a long journey ahead of us, it was time to get back on the road. But Yorkshire had one more treat for us. And this one, none of us were expecting. As we started our journey home, perched on the side of the road, we saw this. The only camera we had out was James's. So, thanks James for capturing this moment. A suitable close to a spectacular trip. In a few weeks, we'll be heading to Norfolk, and I hope that trip has as much in store as this one did.